Yo, what's up, and welcome to PrevailPrevail.com. I'm your host with the most, Prevail, and I'm here at Met Home with one of my oldest and dearest friends, Mary. We've known each other for a long time. I've followed you guys through 3 or 4 storefronts. I love the new space. As you know, I'm going to lead with a quote,
Okay.
and we can launch off into the thought process from there. This is from Jules Renard, who said, "Poor style reflects imperfect thought." Yeah?
Yeah.
In design, especially in modern design, it is all about the angles and the design.
Absolutely. Well, and interestingly enough, when you define the mid-century movement, really it would be mostly architects that did a lot of the designing. So that would make sense because it would be their background.
Sure.
Yeah.
And mid-century, for those who don't know, how would you describe that?
I would describe mid-century as a period of time in design from 1945 primarily to 1965. So it was a time of new hope. The war was over. People were excited because, you know, the doom and gloom of the years of the war were gone, and all of a sudden here they were. People, you know, you had all the war brides moving over to Canada, if you were in Canada, but everywhere people were excited. There was all kinds of new materials that people had never used before. They were tired of heavy furniture that went to the ground, that had no air flowing through it. They wanted to use, you know, like Harry Bertoia was a sculptor, and he designed chairs out of metal because to him it was about the air flowing through it. Charles and Ray Ames designed their fiberglass chairs in 1951. Fiberglass was a whole new material. I think one of the most important things that happened was Canada, who hardly ever can stand up to the plate about what they designed in mid-century furniture, was one of the very first. We should credit ourselves for designing molded ply because in 1946 we had a company in Stratford, Ontario. They had been making mosquito bombers for the World War II. The war is over. And they think, what are we going to do with this skill? So they decided to make this whole line of furniture out of molded ply. It wasn't really until 49, 50 that Ray and Charles Ames made their, well, actually, they had made the splint for the war, but no sooner did they make the splint and the war was over. So then thousands and thousands and thousands of those leg splints went into warehouses and never were used again.
Wow. Are those collectible? Those
totally
splints?
Collectible. But they came up years ago because thousands of them had been stored. And then I think as the movement started to pick up speed again, or for people collecting it, you know, a lot of dealers in the States realized, like, we better unearth some of that stuff. And so I would say probably 10, 15 years ago, we used to get them quite often. Now I never get them.
Isn't that something?
Isn't that something?
And so within mid-century, we also have movements like Bauhaus, the Bauhaus movement, and Danish modern, and different countries had a different
country, because every country had different materials. And so I think that the country that a lot of people see as the primary player was all the Scandinavian countries, primarily Denmark. Sure. And I think that's important. In my shop, I don't like to just represent the Danes because it wasn't just about the Danes. Right. You know, we had Canadian stuff we love, American stuff, English stuff. Everybody had different materials. But interestingly enough, in the entire movement, there were so many husband and wife combinations. Right. And so, you know, they, like in England, you know, the Days were designing, he was designing chairs, she was designing fabrics. Okay. In the United States, Russell Wright was designing furniture, and his wife was primarily designing all the ceramics. Okay. So, you know, it was exciting. It was really, it was a very changing time in history. Yeah, and it really took, I suppose Art Deco was maybe the movement before that transitioned. Exactly, because, I think the sad thing about the Art Deco period was that it kind of got going, but there was so much doom and gloom between the First and the Second World War and the Big Depression that, you know, and then, you know, and the Depression and the war really took the wind out of people's sails. There wasn't the money for the materials to be having hope. There was nothing to be hopeful for. Sure. It was just, you know, kind of one battle after another. Yeah, and so to speak. The importance of design.
in everyday life, functionality.
It's got a form and
tactile.
function. We like when we're buying something, we always say, you know what, don't buy it if it doesn't have form and function. So like we get a lot of requests for dressers. You don't want to buy a dresser that's not practical. So the drawers need to be, you know, tall enough, and they need to come out properly, and everything needs to work right. If it doesn't work right, then that's bad design.
Right.
Just like I think when we first got into the business, I used to have a lot of people that used to come and say, wow, you know, I could build a chair for you. And you're like, okay, then, well. But they wouldn't think about all the practical things about a chair. Like it's got to be at a certain height, and it's got to be a certain width, and you can't design a table like, oh, that's a beautiful dining table, but it's 3 inches above standard. So now no chairs are going to match that table. Lovely design, but the function isn't there.
It's got to go hand in hand.
It's got to go hand in hand, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to get the craftsmanship, and certainly in that period, I think was really important. And the Danes really had it down because they knew they were onto something, and they were going to do a lot of exporting, but they wanted to control what they were sending out of the country. So, you know, when you collect Danish furniture and you see that lovely little black sticker on the piece, because that told them that it was approved, it was handcrafted, it was a nice piece of furniture.
And that was a benchmark all across.
Totally.
Danish furniture.
Danish furniture. But that's why primarily we don't buy furniture from that country really beyond the 60s.
Okay.
Because then it gets a little too cheap and cheerful. And it doesn't have the richness, it doesn't have the grain, it doesn't have the handcraftedness that you see in those early pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to give away any trade secrets, but sourcing.
Actually, I don't mind to tell you how we source, because I probably have the oddest way to source from everyone. I never buy a piece of furniture unless I'm allowed to go to the house that it lived in.
Oh.
And so I don't want to. Anyway, the most important thing to me is where did it live and how did they live?
Right.
Unfortunately, in my first life, I was a trained observer. So when I go to the house, are they slobs? Is there bad mojo? How did they acquire the piece? If you go to someone's house and did they clean it? It's, you know, you find out it's an animal kingdom. There's 23 children running around. You need to know these things. Grandma weighed 400 pounds, sat in that chair every day. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, we've had it on the porch for 3 months.
Right.
So when you go to their house, like if that yellow truck right now said, oh, come on, I got some furniture in the car for you, I'd say, actually, I'm busy right now. How about I'll meet you at your house after work?
Sure. Just to see.
And so that, you know, so consequently, we don't go to Europe and buy furniture because I think that we've been lucky. 25 years later, we can still source a lot of stuff from right around the neighborhood.
And you know the provenance of where it came
Exactly.
from, which is so important.
That is so important because if someone loves something, it's easy to sell it. I'm not in the, years ago when we bought the business, I believe that we bought a secondhand furniture store, and I didn't want to own a secondhand furniture store.
Yeah.
It needed to raise the ante, and I wasn't interested in being a junk dealer. So it's not about just buying and flipping and buying and flipping and buying and flipping. And for the same, you know, obviously also we have people who buy for us, and my prerequisite with those people is that they love what they do. If you buy from someone who loves to collect art, or someone who collects chairs or lights or whatever, they'll buy better than just some schlock who's going to go pounding on everybody's door when there's a garage sale and interrupt their life and yada yada because they're such a VIP. Those people I wouldn't buy from them.
Right. Yeah.
So we're very fussy.
And it shows, and it absolutely pays off.
Yeah.
When you come to Met Home, I did this quite a bit, and I'm sure maybe at some point it got a little annoying, but you can come in and not only have an aesthetic look around, there are all these beautiful place cards everywhere that describe the history of the piece, the era of design, the artist, and it is an amazing education just to come down here, talk to Mary. She is always a wealth of knowledge, always open-armed and kind-hearted. Thank you, Mary, so much for your time. I
Absolutely. Thanks for the interview.
Live from Met Home, West 2nd in Kitsilano. Come check it out. See my girls. Let them know what's up. Live from PrevailPrevail.com. I'm Prevail. Thank you, guys. Peace.